Hey everybody, welcome back to Southern Copper Chronicles. This is going to be part 2 of our all grain mash video. So in this video I'm going to show you guys the steps required to make an all grain mash, as well as what we need, the equipment you need. Alright, so this equipment's pretty easy. You're going to need roughly 3 pounds per gallon of grains, for however many pounds of grain, for how many pounds or gallons of mash that you're going to need. Now I do want to put a little caveat in here. If you have a 10 gallon still and you want 10 gallons of liquid, personally I ferment on the grain, so I'm going to increase my recipe by 1/3, right? So if you need 10 gallons of liquid, make a 15 gallon recipe. Couple reasons for that. One is because grain soaks up a whole lot of liquid. So if you only use 10 gallons, if you needed if you have a 10 gallon still and you used 10 gallons of water, you're probably only get about 6 gallons of liquid out of that. By the time the grains soak up a whole lot of the water, and then the displacement in your fermentation vessel. So that's how I do it. I ferment on the grains. I don't try and strain anything. It just makes a mess. It isn't worth the time for the added amount of liquid you get out, in my opinion. So you know, if you need 10 gallons of liquid, make 15 gallons. Just multiply it times, or just add 1/3 to your recipe. All right. So we're going to need 3 pounds per gallon of water of grain, and then we're going to need a converting agent to convert the starches from our grains into sugar, right? Like I said in the other video, you use your glucoamylase. For this video, we're going to use our malted grains. You're going to need a heat source. For this one, I'm just using a simple hot plate. We're doing a 2 gallon conversion, you know, just for ease of making everything. You're going to need an SG hydrometer, a triple scale hydrometer, so we can get a feel for our specific gravity and how much sugar we have in our mash at the start. Optional, I always like to use it, a little bit of iodine. I'll go into that here in a few minutes. That's just going to tell us if we have starches still remaining, to get the most sugar out of our grains and convert the most starch into sugar that we can. Probably one of the most important things is going to be our stirring apparatus. If you've got a bigger pot, like you're making, you know, 20 plus gallons, I'm going to be doing a video on how to do that without, you know, scorching, make it a little bit easier. I'm going to be doing that later on, probably next week. But if you're using an actual heat source, either a propane burner or an electric hot plate, you got to stir it. You got to stir it, because we do not want to scorch anything, and it's very easy to scorch. All right, so step 1 is going to be converting our pre-soak. All right, that's our first step. I went ahead and pre-soaked last night. I'll show you guys how I did that here in just a second. All right, guys, so this is going to be step 1. We're going to pre-soak our grains. I got 4 cups of water here, and I'm not going to use all of this. All right, use about half of it. We might end up using all of it. What we're doing is we're just trying to get this grain overnight to soak up as much moisture as possible without interfering with our specific gravity. 3 pounds of grain, about 4 cups of water. Not gonna make that much difference on our specific gravity, but it will make a whole lot of difference on the amount of liquid, fermentable liquid, or fermented liquid we have at the end of our fermentation process. There we go. What it should look like, you know, still seems a little bit dry, but those 4 cups put enough moisture into this grain where when we get ready to start our conversion process. Make a whole lot of difference in the amount of liquid we have left over to put into our still. So we're gonna let that sit overnight. And we'll check on it tomorrow. Alright, so we pre-soaked our grain. Step 2, we gotta heat our water. This is a very important step. Do not try and put your grain into your water and heat it up. I mean, you can if you have an amazing stirring apparatus, you know, like a drill with one of the paint stirrers on it, something like that. But if you're using any kind of actual heat source underneath of your pot, go ahead and heat your water first. All right. So that's going to be our second step, heating our water. We want to heat our water up to about 190 up to boiling, right? I like getting around 200. You see our temperature right now, we're right about 190, 185, climbing up to 200. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to add our grain. Since we're doing 2 gallons, like I was saying, the 1/3 factor, or 30% of unconverted grain to 70% unconverted grain, 30% converted grain, all right, of malt, 30% of a malted grain. So now we got our water up. I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna put this corn in, and it doesn't matter if it's corn, we're gonna put our unconverted grain into our hot water and let it gel, okay? So step 3 is gelatinizing our unconverted grain. I'm gonna move the camera up here where everybody can see this. All right, and all I'm simply going to do is we're going to stir in step 3. Like I said, we're going to gelatinize our corn. We just added our pre-soaked corn into our pot here, and now we're going to stir this. All right, we're going to stir, stir, stir. This process is going to take about 2 hours. All right, we want to hold this at about 190 for somewhere around, you know, 1 to 2 hours. We're going to watch it, and you guys are going to see what I'm talking about. This is going to get thick. This is going to start to get so thick that we almost won't be able to get our spoon into it. And this is what I was talking about as far as the grains. Even though we already did a little bit of a pre-soak, grains soaking up a whole lot of the water, which is why I recommend adding 1/3 to your recipe. Make sure you get enough liquid for whatever size pot you want to use. All right. So I'm going to cut here. We're going to come back in about an hour. We're going to check it out and see how it's looking. GoPro, stop recording. All right, guys. While we're on step 3, while we're letting our corn gel, we're going to go ahead and we're going to bust this malt down, right? This malted barley, and we're going to grind it up because, like I said, everything that we need for our conversion is inside of these, inside the grain. A grain mill, which my old grain mill finally died on me, and I'm making a big mess here. We'll have to clean up. But if you're making anything, even if you're making a bigger run, you can use a blender. Works great. All right. All right, now you can see I ground this really fine. I do not like my unmalted grains, what I'm converting, being ground this fine because it makes it, it just clogs everything up, makes it really hard to, even if you're on the grain and you're siphoning it off, makes it hard to get out sometimes. But for my malted grains, I want to bust this up really nice and fine like this. That way I know that all my amylase enzymes that are in this malt, I know that they're going to do their job 100%. This honey malt, I wish you guys could smell this. Man, this stuff smells amazing. It's something else. All right, so just thought I'd share this with you, how to do this if you need to. Quick caveat, you notice I had to use a bowl on my blender. Had to go buy a blender, still lost it. Make sure and return the blender to the wife's kitchen. Yeah, I've lost a couple of these or broke them trying to crush a grain up, and she doesn't get very happy. So if you want to stay out of trouble, go ahead and go go buy your own blender instead of stealing the one from the wife's kitchen. And if you do, make sure and return it. Alright guys, so we're just on step 3 right now, gelatinizing our corn. Been gelling it at about 190 degrees for about an hour and a half, 2 hours now. It got just, you know, I'll show you all, move the camera, how crazy thick it gets. But the first thing we got to do before we can go to our conversion is we've got to let this cool. So I'm going to turn the camera off. I'm going to turn it off. Actually turn a little fan on. Just let it naturally cool down to 160 degrees. This is really important. You do not want to add your, especially glucoamylase or your malted grains really over 160, about 155 to 160 degrees. If you add it when your temperature is still up around 190, you're going to destroy some of the amylase. You're going to take away from the conversion factor. So don't add it too high of a temperature. Let it cool down to 160 degrees. Then add your malt. All right, so we're going to turn it off and let it cool. All right, I want you guys to see how thick this is. All right, I mean, this stuff is like oatmeal. It's crazy how thick this gets at 3 pounds per gallon of water. So now we're going to move from step 3 into step 4, which is going to be doing our actual conversion. All right, so like I said before, 4.2 pounds of Bloody Butcher corn, unmalted, and 2 gallons of water. And now we're going to add our, I'm going to add a little bit of time here. We're going to add our 1.8 pounds of honey malt. I want you guys to see how fast this process works. I'm not going to stop the camera. I might speed it up just a little bit here in a minute. We're adding our malt here. We're going to dump the rest of this in. The starches, once they start to cook, start soaking up the water, man, they get thick. They just get so thick that you almost can't stir it. And now watch what happens here. Watch what happens here as we start to stir this malt. There we go. All right, you already noticed that the conversion process has started. Notice how much thinner this is already getting. Alright, now like I said before we move the camera up here, we want to add our malts or our amylase at 160 degrees. We don't want to add, especially our malted grains, we don't want to add this at a higher temperature because it's going to affect our conversion process. Alright, so what we're going to do now, we're just going to let this malt do its job. Alright guys, so we've been holding this this here with our honey malt for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, see, about an hour and 45 minutes, you know, consistently stirring. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do our iodine test. We're going to see how much starch is left in this mash. All right, so let's do this starch test. All right, that's going to be step 6. All right, check our conversion. and add malt or add water as needed with our conversion. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to check this conversion rate and see where we're at. So I'll move the camera up here a little bit so you guys can see a little bit better. All I'm doing is I'm going to take a little spoonful here. All right, put a little spoonful of our mash in. I'm going to add a couple drops of this iodine. Like I said in the conversion video, this iodine, about 10 to 1, so you can see. All right, that's looking pretty good. See, that's what you want. Notice how it's not black. There's not a lot of black in there. So that means there's not much starch left in this. A little bit darker color. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to stop this video. I'm going to let it cool a little bit. I'm going to pull some of this liquid out. And then we're going to check our SG. We're going to check our specific gravity. And we're going to see how much sugar we got in here. But right now, it's looking real good. Alright guys, so I pulled this out. Pulled some liquid to test out. With the specific gravity, we saw our conversion test. Came out really clear. So the starch has all been converted to sugar. Our SG, our specific gravity, is right around 1.086. So that's going to give us right around 12% alcohol by volume. It's going to be an amazing mash. If y'all have any questions, let me know. All we have to do now is wait for this mash to cool down to around 85, 90 degrees and pitch our yeast. All right. For this mash, I'm going to be, pitching some daddy yeast just to see how it works out. And then here in a few weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to run it and see how it turns out. Again, if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section here. Check or post them on my Facebook page, Southern Copper Chronicles, and I'll answer everything I can. Like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more how-to videos like this, and I appreciate y'all tuning in. So there you go, all grain mash, how you make it, recipe, and all the steps to get her done. All right, fellas, shine on and enjoy. Recording.